but just got a few different questions for you before we get started. So first off, how long have you been playing Overwatch for?
I started on the game probably like about a year and a half ago. Probably closer to just a year, so not too long. But
Okay. And then let's say like the past 2 weeks or so, how often have you been playing the game?
uh, basically every night, to be honest.
All right. And then like every night, like how often? Like every night you cut like an hour, 8 hours.
It's mostly from like 9 to 12 or like 8 to 12, so like a few hours.
Okay. And then final question for you before we begin is, do you have any questions for me before we start?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, well then we can just go ahead and get started, and I'll just be a minute or so while I'm looking for something to talk about.
Gotcha.
I have found you! Don't move. Come and face me! Unacceptable. All better. Hold up now.
Okay, so um, here first off, I'll just call out things as I see them, and then I'll just start to go more in depth as I like as they become more important, or if they start to repeat themselves. Here we just obviously dying is not very good, but why did we die, and how could we have stopped that? Here we just a couple different things. First off, you're gonna notice I believe we stand still, so we just kind of stand in that one particular spot, and we're not really moving around very much. Typically, you're going to want to move like left to right, as often as possible. Whenever you're just standing in one area, you're just going to want to strafe left, right, left,
Yeah.
right, left, right. Other thing is that we're just very out in the open, and therefore you can see here that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people on their team can see us and shoot at us. So that just means that we're not using cover too well. So just as a basic, thing before they can, and not going too in depth on it yet, but just basically how positioning works is good positioning is the usage of cover, is bad positioning is the absence of cover. If we're standing right here and we can do this and then put them out of line of sight, this is good positioning, right? Whereas if we're standing over here, right, and we're not behind that cover, then everybody can shoot at us, right? And it's just, important thing to remember is it's not just standing next to cover, it's actually using it. So when we have 4 people, 5 people shooting at us, we need to make sure we're putting ourselves out of their line of sight. So just for example, sitting here shooting at the ball would have kept us alive while shooting, still doing a similar amount of damage, right? So just us, the fact that we're out in the open where they can all shoot at us was what got us killed, and then potentially loses the fight for our team.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's skip ahead.
Get in here! Don't move. Let them out.
Alright, so we get back to the fight. They've started to use ultimates. Let's watch that again. So here we're already down both our tanks. They kind of got rolled, and then yeah, I think that's is kind of over by that point. So not a ton that we did in the second fight, though. That this fight could have partially been
Unfinished business.
lost due to us dying and during that like last fight.
Yeah.
Hold up now.
Okay, so we're taking left side. Okay. So let's see. We're doing this now. Fights. Okay, so it looks like our team's not going in, so that works out for us. Just want to be careful that we're not doing that like while the fight's happening, but it looks fine
Mhm.
for now. And then I'm assuming we're going for a high noon from here. Good audio awareness. That's really nice. Okay.
Into the eyes.
Want to make sure that when we're peeking, we're going for the high noon after we've seen them, not before we see them, because that just if we're high nooning and then peeking the corner, that's going to give them extra time to locate us and find us, and kind of leaves some of our surprise advantage. So here we jump over here and then we high noon before we are actually able to actually acquire any targets, and that's just going to give them extra time to headshot us. So just want to make sure we're waiting. Very nice high noon though. I like the positioning with it. Okay.
I need healing.
Enemy contact.
Now, hold on.
Yeah, very nice.
Damn it.
Огонь по готовности.
Okay, I mean, so far it's looking like smooth sailing in these two fights. Though we're playing slightly passive here when it's probably not necessary that we do. So here we have a very significant advantage. Yeah, we kind of just sit in place and we don't move forward. So here we're up 3 people, or you get 3 picks, is 6v3. You know, we're still kind of just sitting in place, right? We shoot at the ball, and then we shoot at the ball, and then we start backing up here, and when there's people to chase, and then we just kind of sit there, and then we start pushing forward. So we just want to make sure we're getting slightly more aggressive when we're up there.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we're coming back up here for a high noon. That works.
My ultimate is ready.
Only thing possibly was just being predictable, though it looks like it worked there. Okay, so dying again at the first. So far we've seen kind of 2 different things. Like, I've seen a lot of very consistent gameplay across the board, and then where we seem to be getting into a lot of trouble is when we leave good positioning into bad positioning and then get picked first off, and then that loses us fights. So that's looking already like one of the bigger things that's repeated twice now, is like, besides those 2 big mistakes, we haven't really made any smaller, tinier mistakes, and it's been smooth sailing. But then we'll make this one big, massive mistake, and it's happened twice now, where now we've died first at the very beginning of a fight, keeping in mind that that's pretty bad, right? Dying first is definitely worse than like dying last. If you're dying last, that means that your team has, already lost the fight. But if we're dying first, that means that that's our impact on losing that fight, right?
Yeah.
And on top of that, we just lose value. We're going to be dead and respawning for the next 20 seconds, which is going to mean that we probably shouldn't be dying. And then again, so if survivability is looking like one of the bigger things, right? Let's just focus in on that for the moment, right? Because that's already looking like a big pattern, or at least for the first 2 deaths here. The first 2 big mistakes were the deaths. Well, first off, we want to focus on survivability, but like also, how does one improve at survivability? Well, how you improve at anything is you're going to look to uh, think about like what mistake you're making, and then try to fix that mistake. So when you die, you really have like 4 main reasons why you could die. You have a misuse of abilities, so such as like rolling into their team. You have too much aggression, right? Just going too far in, again, like rolling into their team. Or you have a lack of positioning, such as rolling into their team, and then you have a lack of awareness, which unfortunately isn't rolling into their team, but a lack of awareness, like just not paying attention to someone who's flanking us, right?
Yeah.
So those are really the 4 main ways, and then you want to identify in game while you're playing. Every time you die, right, just look at your death while it's happening, and go, snap, I died, and then you say, okay, I died. Why did I die here, right? So we can look through this death. Okay, well, we died here because we were out in the open, right? So we'll after we're done this, we'll go and we'll talk more about positioning. But here we died because we're out of position. We're out in the open, and then therefore that got us killed. So that would be a positional death. Now, when you are looking to, that's the mistake, right? That's the problem. But you also want to identify the solution. And so if we are in bad positioning, where could we have been positioning instead, right? Where could we have been positioning better? So, for example, maybe like closer to cart, right? Or even further back more, like taking the high ground here or something of that sort, right? Just not out in the open, and then that would result in us staying alive longer, and then therefore we want to look to apply that to our gameplay. So we're at 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Since this has happened twice now, let's just talk about positioning real quick and just the basics of how that works. So we talked briefly on it, but it goes a little bit further than what we said. So basically, position is just where you're standing, right? When we are standing right up here and the enemy team is right up here, right? And they're all shooting at us, and they're all taking a bunch of damage. It takes us 1, 2, 3 seconds to get behind cover. Now, from here, we cannot get shot at, right? We can't shoot through solid objects, so we're safe. But in that time it took us to get here, we died, right? Because we are on the open. Now, from here, we can, in half of a second, duck behind this cover, right? It takes us, you know, a sixth of the amount of time to do this, right? Which means that we have much more survivability here. Therefore, good positioning is the usage of cover, whereas bad positioning is the absence of cover, right? And if we are just, again, remembering, if we're just standing here and we never decide to duck behind the corner when we're in danger, then it's useless, right? It doesn't do, the cover doesn't do anything. It's the usage of cover. It's actually getting behind that cover when we're being shot at, right? And standing next to it in the first place. When we're out in the open and somewhere like this, that means that we're going to end up dying, and that's what happened on that last point that we were on. Now, there's a lot of different types of cover, right? We can use slopes like so. We can use pillars, right? Just in between shots when we're reloading, when people are shooting at us and we're taking damage, right? You have corners like this. You have random objects you find sitting around, right? You can use the payload like that, right? Pillar, corner, doorway, corner, right? Just they're all over the place. On top of that, all of high ground acts as natural cover. They can see us, can't see us, add in a crouch, can't see us, right? So all of high ground acts as natural cover, which makes it really great for you. On top of that, 2/3 of the characters in the game can't actually reach you without you using the stairway, and then the ones that can need to use abilities, and that means that now they're out of abilities when they get to you. And then thirdly, high grounds act as fantastic visibility. We can see things in there, over here, over there, and over here, right? But when we're on a low ground, right, we can't see over there, not over there, not over there, and none of the high grounds, right? So tons of visibility as well. So that's just basics of positioning, and we probably want to be implementing that into our gameplay so we're not losing our team fights and people just don't enjoy dying, right? I know you probably don't have fun dying, so it's something we want to look to work on.
Traveling to Dorado. Ready.
Yeah, we're ahead of this, I think. One moment. Okay, so it's after we died here, skipping forwards. So for example here, I would probably recommend coming out and immediately just walking right side to get to the high ground, right? On their team composition, they have only 3 characters that, like, you know, Zenyatta would be incapable, Zenyatta, Brig, and Reinhardt would be incapable of reaching you unless they went all the way around, and then Ball, Genji, and Junkrat could, but as long as we're playing safe, you know, we pretty much are going to be all good if if we get dove by a ton of, like, if we get dove by one of them, we can probably survive it pretty easily. If we get dove by multiple, we can just roll away into our team. We can, you know, duel them. We can, you know, they have to use abilities to get up to us. So, you know, Junkrat uses mines. Now he doesn't have mines to, you know, to take us out. Genji, you know, Genji can't climb up to us, right? But point being, probably taking high ground to be the best positioning here that we could take. Nice flash. Okay, notice again, wide out in the open positioning where we're not using any cover anywhere, right? Whereas better positioning would be closer to like this right wall where notice how like pretty much all these guys can't really see us now, right? Whereas when we're right here, pretty much everybody can shoot at us and see us, right? So hugging this right wall over here, you know, you have cover here, this thing, you have Ryan Shield, you have this over here, taking high ground to give you cover, right? It's just anything but standing in the middle of the open. Very nice. Okay, general mechanics are looking pretty solid. Oh, what was that?
I don't know.
Oof. yeah, general mechanics are looking really solid. We seem to be hitting a lot of our shots, so that's looking good. Ultimates have also been looking pretty solid. Looks like we're AFK for some reason.
Cool. Really.
Let them out.
Okay. Unfortunately, yeah, we want to make sure that we've been cutting it close a couple times. We just want to make sure, and I like that we're rotating the high grounds. It's just want to make sure that we're not doing those rotations in the middle of fights. We want to be doing those rotations in between fights. Here it looks like we're kind of starting the fight. Ultimates are being thrown. Reapers in the back line. Our Reinhardt was just brawling with them a second ago. Yeah, we're like across the map from them. So want to make sure we're not doing that in the middle of it. And then here again, now we're forced to do this rotation while stuff is happening. Okay. Okay. Probably no reason to drop from high ground there. I mean, you can pretty much do the exact same thing from up there. Maybe if it was an accident, then keep in mind that, and I'm not too sure how this would work on controller, because I know controller, is definitely going to be different in how it works out, and I know that crouching is more difficult on controller, but when you get near an edge, so that you have more control over your mobility, try crouching, as that'll lower your movement speed and will allow you to more easily control and make sure you're not walking off the edge. Another thing I'd recommend is just while we're up here on the high ground, we kind of were doing rolling. We were rolling and we weren't crouching. If you're trying to go for a sneaky high noon, that's probably not going to be what you want to do, because then we're being super loud and they can all hear us up here and they're prepared for us. Genji might come and duel us, right? And if we're trying to go for a sneaky high noon, we might want to be a lot quieter so that they don't know that we're there. And that could allow us to get the high noon off better. So here we just kind of drop unnecessarily when it's probably not needed. Great high noon though. High noons have been looking very solid. Mechanics have been looking solid. Just we seem to be making it's not that we're making a ton of tiny mistakes, it's that we're making really big mistakes once in a while.
30 seconds remaining.
Okay, here, we had a large part, in between fights here, we probably could be rotating high ground. Now, it looks like we're only ever taking high ground for the sake of a high noon. I would just say flat up, probably not going to be, you want to take high grounds for other reasons than just that. One other thing I would say here, we could talk briefly on, is target priority. So, yeah, I'm trying to think of. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about target priority. So target priority, I've noticed a lot that we're just stuck shooting at tanks a lot of the time. We end up shooting we end up shooting at them a ton. We're just stuck on the front line a lot of the time, shooting at shields and ball and whatnot. Keep in mind that tanks typically aren't going to be one we want to be focusing a lot. Tanks have 2 to 3 times the health of other characters. They have shields and bubble, or taking abilities and armor, and then on top of that, though tanking is a very important role, their job is to create space for the other roles, whereas a DPS does the damage and supports do the healing, which means that they're the ones outputting statistics, and that's why you want to be taking them out. So how we can look to do that is you take off angles. So basically, high ground acts as an off angle. When we're on a high ground, if a Reinhardt's right in front of us, we can just get around his shield super easily, right? Just from being above it, and he can't really shield you off from getting to the people behind him. So that's something that we can do to get around his shields and make sure we're not just spamming at it from down main. Now we're at trying to think. And then you also have other off angles. I'm trying to think. I guess I'll go to the. We're at 6 minutes 40 seconds. We'll just go to the training range real quick and go over that. So 640, 640, 640. Probably forget that. So yep, you can take high ground that acts as an off angle, right? So how off angling works, right? Enemy team, our team, right? Main angle. Off angle would be if we just went over here real quick, right? This is very fast, very safe, gets us around the tanks and the shields. Right? Another example would be enemy team, my team, main angle, come up here to high ground real quick, right? Now we're on high ground, we got it. And around the enemy team, straight to the back line, right? And then that gets us to what we want to be shooting at, right? This works really, really well for high noons too, which you seem to have down. It's just that we're only doing it for high noons, not any other time, right? Which is good for high noon usage, but it's just bad for general gameplay. Now keep in mind that not every high ground is always going to act as an off angle. Like it only works if they're right below you, right? This doesn't act as an off angle to those guys because it's so far away from them, right? But it will act as an off angle if we're right above them, right? So that's just kind of how that works. Now keep in mind that there is a difference between an off angle and a flank. A flank would be if we went like this, right? The main angle, and we went all the way around, all the way around, all the way around, all the way around, all the way around. Okay, so flanks are going to take 2 times as long. In that time, your team could be losing the fight. They're also going to be more dangerous than the other two, right? So a flank is inherently long and or dangerous. So the only time you'd ever be going for a flank on McCree is if you're going for a high noon, which we have done a couple times. We kind of took those long wraparound flanks to the high ground. You just want to make sure that those aren't happening in the middle of fights. And you also want to make sure that it's like semi-safe-ish, right? Because some of them can get pretty dangerous. So you want to make sure you're in a pretty safe one. So it is sometimes doable, just you don't want to do it all the time, and probably not when you don't have high noon. And then most of the time, yes, go for off angles, and then yes, rotate to high grounds in between fights.
Traveling to Dorado, ready for battle.
Okay. Yeah, we're way ahead of this. We're at I think it's 640. There we go.
30 seconds remaining.
No. Was it not 640?
I
I guess
thought
it was.
was.
I guess it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's right here.
Again, kind of notice the wide wrap around to the right. Sorry to continue on because I think I didn't fully finish this. So no, that's not to say that you never shoot at tanks, right? You shoot at tanks when they're low. You shoot at them when they're out of position. You shoot at them when they're the only thing to shoot at, right? Because off angles aren't always going to be an option. But when you, especially like when you can actively seek out the other roles, you want to actively seek out the other roles, or if you have equal opportunity. So you have, for example, here, right, an equal opportunity to shoot at, I don't know, Reinhardt or BAP or Diva, right? Like, you have this option where we could probably shoot at BAP if we wanted to here, try to target him out. Now he's hiding like right behind the Diva, so that might be a little bit harder, but you know, that's just a situation where maybe we can go try to aim for the Baptiste instead of the Reinhardt. Also taking that wide angle, probably don't want to be out in the open like this, right? Use cover, play over here. Don't take a wide open angle because that's going to just result in you dying. Okay, now we did get tired there, but probably after we lose our flashbang, don't run straight at a Genji. Probably not the best idea while he's blading. Because even if we didn't get tired, he probably would have killed us still because we just didn't have anything to stun him.
Overtime.
It ain't my time.
The payload has reached the checkpoint.
Regen up.
Okay, probably during this time we want to be repositioning up to the top high ground above us. Now we do look for that, but again, I think it's only because we have our high noon currently.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I flopped on this one too. Maybe not.
Okay, so there, let's like rewatch that for a second. I think we don't use it because they use the BAP window, right? Okay, so there's the lamp up currently. Probably I would just go for this one. So basically when it comes to high noon, right, you have a couple decisions, right? You can either go immediately as soon as you see the skulls, or you can wait a little bit longer. The only time you ever want to wait a little bit longer is if you don't have anything that you can hit, or if you think that you can get a better a better kit, like amount of kills, a higher amount of kills by holding on to it and still not dying. Now in this situation, you would, if we shot, we would be killing the Junkrat and basically getting everyone else down to like 1 HP, right? Basically with this high noon right now. Now notice how the longer we hold on to it, it allows 2 people to get to safety, which now they're not going to be down any HP. here again, we probably, if we shot right now, we could be getting one person to 1 HP and getting 2 kills, Reinhardt and the Junkrat, right? But we hold on to it for even longer, and then Junkrat gets around the corner, and then now it's just the Reinhardt and the Genji, and then we go for it now, which again, we could get 2 kills out of this,
Draw.
and then Genji gets around the corner. So we just held on to it for too long to where it got less value than if we fired it earlier, right? So we have to be careful of not holding on to it for too long. I like that we dropped to use the window. Awareness, right? This is a death caused by awareness. Not hearing or paying attention to the Junkrat. So we saw Junkrat there when we were high nooning. We see Junkrat there a little bit through, we can see him through the people in front of us. We can hear him. We can see him right here. We can hear him going clunk, clunk, clunk with the shots. We can see that we're taking damage from that angle, such as, where we see right next to our crosshair, you're going to see the damage indicator coming from where you are taking damage, right? As well as the fact that you hear him, or you can, we just listening using our ears, and we just don't notice that there's a Junkrat right there, and we just kind of walk into him. Right, so we want to pay attention to it, because then what ends up happening is we make that one mistake, and again, that one mistake of us getting picked first results in our team losing that fight, right? Which just happen over and over and over and over again, right? So we want to make sure we're looking to stay alive and not die, deaths that are very preventable. Here we're pushing very wide out in the open.
Rest in peace.
Very nice. Woo!
I'm on.
10 seconds.
Right.
Now hold on.
Overtime.
It's high noon. Draw.
Very nice. Okay. So let's go over our... Oh, and then we're dead. Okay, so make sure we're listening. So that one is a awareness death, because if we hear the fire in the hole, and we're watching, so we hear him go fire in the hole, we hear the tire coming in, if we're tracking it with our ears, we can tell it's okay, it's probably coming either in front of us or the left door. We probably want to be backing up so we have more space to work with, because wherever it's coming from, if we back up, we have more time to react to where it's coming from, right? We have more time to shoot at it. Here it's coming in, it comes left side. Yeah, we don't notice that we also have... Okay, never mind. We don't have rolls on 0 seconds there. So big thing is just paying attention to it so that we're not dying. So let's talk about strengths and weaknesses real quick. Just like, what do you need to work on with your kit? Starting with ability usage. On McCree, ability usage isn't the most important, and I don't think that we're struggling too much with it. Sometimes we're missing flashbangs, but that's pretty much it. But for the most part, ability usage is looking pretty solid. So honestly, that's probably going down at like a low priority for you to work on. High noons, fantastic. Are probably like the best high noons I've seen from a McCree player that I've coached, right? Not non-exaggerating on that part. And unless I'm just forgetting someone. So high noons, there's slight tweaks here and there, but besides that, most of the time we're getting value out of them. Good timing. I like that we're not holding on to them. I like that we're using them very frequently, and we're using them at the beginning of fights. Just maybe the only thing would just be making sure we're not making those rotations to go for the high noons in the middle of fights, and then basically want to just go in those rotations slightly faster, and then also like that last one we just had where we got 2 kills probably could have been a risky high noon. Like we did it like right in front of a Genji and a ball, and if either of them shot at us, or they could have probably just gotten around the corner real quick. They just kind of ran into it, so
Yeah.
slightly riskier one, but like for the most part, really fantastic. And that's looking like a low, maybe like the ability usage or ultimate usage have the potential to get bumped up to like a low to medium, but for the moment, both of those are at a low priority, right? Now, where we get into more stuff is when we go on the other categories here. So mechanics is where we bump it up a little bit. Target priority, shooting at the right things. We end up shooting at tanks quite a bit. Now, it's not all the time, but it's a little bit more than we should be. So making sure we're not shooting at tanks all the time and in the right situation and shooting at them only in the right situations. Now moving on in mechanics, we're generally hitting shots, and I think honestly that was pretty much the only thing we talked about on mechanics so far. So that one was more so like a low to medium. We'll put it there, right? Now these two are the big ones, right? Is where you get into positioning and awareness, and then we'll probably add in survivability, but we'll pair that one. I guess Snap doesn't really pair well with the other ones because it's been like 2 and 2 here. So now next we'll go over awareness, right? Awareness is paying attention to where the tire is, paying attention to where the Junkrat is, make sure we're using our ears and we're listening so we can
Mhm.
hear where the tire is and where Junkrat is, making sure we're paying attention to, our health bar, make sure we request healing. I think we did that like once, but we didn't do it another time. So request healing when you are, low when you need it. That way you get it faster. Make sure that, there's a lot of odds and ends decision making things that we've kind of been messed up here and there, right? Just because of slight lack of awareness in certain things. And then and then paying attention, just where's my team, where's the enemy team, and then all of that adds up to awareness probably being like a medium thing to work on, right?
Mhm.
Um, survivability, I guess let's go over positioning before we go over survivabilities. Positioning, right? Making sure we're not standing on the open. That was a pretty massive one that keeps happening as we just stand on the open. Making sure we're rotating the high grounds faster, and in situations where in other situations besides just our ultimate, making sure that we are going on off angles so that we can get around shields and tanks, and then only flanks in the right situations. Then that is pretty much the main ones in positioning, and then therefore positioning goes up pretty high, probably like a medium high priority for you to work on. And then finally, survivability. Survivability is a mix right now between positioning and awareness, as we've died twice to awareness and twice to positioning. And then, as a result, both of those times have been the first, like every single time we've died has pretty much been the first death, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 first death on our team, and that's just losing us fight after fight after fight. Because that's pretty much 4 fights that our team has lost because of our death, and that means that our survivability and staying alive is a pretty important thing, and therefore that's going at like a medium high. Maybe I might even bump that up to a high priority. But we just want to make sure we're staying alive because those are like, there's different ranges in mistakes, right? You have small mistakes and you have big mistakes, right? These are pretty big mistakes, right? I think you're doing pretty solid on the small mistakes end, right? You're pretty solid at not having a ton of tiny small mistakes all over the place, but where you're struggling in is making sure you're not making those big massive mistakes that are just ruining your gameplay.
Uh-huh.
I heard there's a nest.
Attackers incoming. Escort the payload.
Okay, so we're going around. Yeah, that's pretty decent, especially since we at the very beginning that that gave us enough time to rotate around. Maybe once we get to this point, this is where we should start like crouching, so that we're like hiding our position. Though it looks like we're just kind of waltzing straight in, which will mean that people are going to be able to hear you coming, like such as Lucio here, who or I guess maybe Lucio probably didn't know you're there because he just kind of walks into you. But especially the higher in ranks you go, people will hear you coming because they will have better audio awareness,
Mhm.
and we want to play as if we're playing up against a higher rank, because if we're not, then you're going to be going up against higher rank players and they're going to catch you out for this, right? I think you're high plat right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, we go into a diamond game, masters game, we're gonna come around this corner, they're gonna know we're here, they're gonna gank us, we're just gonna die, and then therefore we're gonna make an extra mistake. So we're not gonna be able to hang with diamond masters players and in their lobbies if we're making those mistakes now. So we want to build good habits, and on top of that, there will even be players at this rank who will hear you. So just make sure we're adding in crouches. Now, let's see what happened on the Lucio that we missed all the shots. I was kind of zoned out there.
You boot me and then
Yeah.
I fan the hammer.
Hmm. Very nice.
I shall seize and land on safely. Hold up now. I need it.
Okay, so there we got a little bit too aggressive. We're kind of going into a 1v2 currently, and probably don't want to be taking that when when it's a 1v2 and we don't have the advantage here, right? We don't have any advantage at the moment. Don't take duels where you know you have a disadvantage. Um, right? Basically, like if this is just a Bastion or just an Ana, go for it. But if
Mhm.
you don't have health, or or you don't have teammates and they do have teammates and they do have more health than you and they have an ultimate or like whatever, right? If they have a bigger advantage than you do, don't take that duel back out. If you do have a bigger advantage than they do, go actively chase down the duel, right? Like force them into the duel. So here we just kind of roll in aggressively and go for the duel when probably not the best idea. So that would be a situation where this is a death caused by over-aggression, right? So again, survivability, dying first on our team, right? Potentially, or I guess, did we die first on our team? Yeah, we're blue. Yeah, so dying besides Roadhog, right? So dying second on our team, still better, still worse than dying sixth, right? So too early keeps on happening. Probably don't need to flash until you like see that you didn't kill him out of the sleep, because it's probably likely that you get the kill there, so flash wasn't really necessary.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
All right, we're at 12 minutes and 20 seconds. So real quick, we're gonna go over something here. So I think this one is slightly inconsistent. I don't think it's the worst, but I also know I'm noticing moments where it's not happening. So it's just kind of like it's happening sometimes, it's not happening the other time. So we're gonna talk about like crosshair placement real quick. Are you familiar with that term?
More or less.
More or less. So, it's just placing your crosshair in the best place possible to hit the most and the easiest shots, right? The big first step to this is making sure that we're aiming head level, right? When we are walking around aiming at body level, right, and we're walking around doing this, then we're gonna hit body shots. Body shots don't do nearly as much damage as headshots. It's almost half the damage that headshots do, and therefore headshots are what we want to be hitting, because that's going to mean that we're killing people faster. When we kill people faster, that gives them less time to get away, to get healed, to get you have tanking abilities to kill you, right? Killing things faster is always gonna be better. Now the further we have to adjust, right? So we have to adjust up and to the right or up and to the left. When we're doing this, is a much harder shot to hit than it is to just move slightly to the side, right? Which means that we want to be aiming at head level. That way it's going to be easiest to hit headshots. Now let's just say we're spamming into shields, shooting down a corridor, just shooting people normally, just on average, we're going to be hitting body shots if we're aiming there, whereas if we're just aiming at head level, doing the exact same thing, now our natural shots are just hitting headshots, right? This is happening sometimes while I watch you, and then other times it's not, so we just want to be conscious about making sure that we're actively doing it and not only doing it half the time. The other
Yeah.
part to this is making sure we're aiming where we know people are going to be. So, for example, bot going top right, we know he's top right. We're going to pre-aim here right at head level. So when he comes around the corner, this is going to be very easy shots because we're already aiming at where he's going to be. Very little adjustment. We know he's top left, so we're going to pre-aim top left, already aiming at his head. So we can turn around the corner, already aiming at his head. Right? These guys are on a little bit of a slope, right? They're a little bit downward. So on the same way we look down on a Torb and up on a tank, I'm not really seeing us adjust up for Bastions and tanks when they're taller than other people. We want to make sure we're looking down a little bit. So when we turn the corner, we're already aiming there, right? So we just want to make sure we're getting that kind of into our habits. That way we can look to improve upon our aim.
Yeah.
Because, in general, we're hitting a lot of shots. It's just more body shots than would be preferable. Okay, you remember where we were at? We were on attack now.
Yeah, we're an attack after the first death.
Yeah, I'm not too sure where that.
There it is.
Yeah, so like here-ish.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
The payload has reached the checkpoint.
I need doctor.
Okay, so we're flanking to look for a ult. That's fine. Both teams kind of separated. So actually, it's looking like our timing for those are really solid as well. Like we're not going while fights are happening. At least that could be on purpose. It could just be coincidence. But it's looking pretty solid. Now are we going
I
for
took
the
a
high?
long ass route. Like a long ass route.
Yeah, probably would say this was not the best. Yeah, okay, so we just didn't know where the fight was happening, right?
Uh,
Pay attention to like where Cart is. Cart's right here. They have their entire team current or most of their team currently. On each payload point, you have roughly 2 fights. The first fight's always going to be happening somewhat early. The second fight happens at the end. So the first fight's going to happen either around this bend or around this bend, right? The second fight's going to be happening around this bend or around the end, right? It's somewhere around those. So we can assume that the enemy team is probably going to be positioned up here in this area, not over here where we think they're going to be. So
uh,
that means that we just end up going way too far. And we also even see them while we're rotating. Like we go over here and look at them and we see they're all over there. Yet we're coming to this top right one, and then also think of it this way. Let's say that let's say that they're right here, right? What's the point of grabbing all around to that one? This one is just closer. This one gives you access to either side you want to go to much faster. And then on top of
yeah.
that, this one's very much out in the like this one reveals your location if people are looking at you, right? Because they can just look to the side and see, oh snap, there's a McCree. A lot more out in the open areas, right? Whereas this one doesn't really have that as much. It's all sneaky. So just any way you slice it, probably not the best rotation.
Yeah, I was very ambitious. And then I turn around and then go through there like spawn. I don't really know what I was thinking.
So we're still
That's up.
expecting, yeah. So we're still expecting them to come back. I would probably just come up this way, and then maybe you could get like one pick on the Baptiste and then duel the Bastion. But I don't think again going to their spawn is the right answer because that just puts us out of the fight longer. Which while we're outside of the fight's happening currently, right? This is an example of like what we talked about with making sure we're not rotating in the middle of fights because currently we're rotating in the middle of the fight and we're as a result we're losing this fight. Now we're down 2 people and then we're down 3 people, right? So this is a pretty much a lost fight by the time we are even in position to do anything. Now will Bastion see us is the question. Oh, no he doesn't. Okay, so we're being sneaky. I mean, this is once you're in this position, this is the best decision you could be making. Though that's an issue. Oh, okay, we just happened in the kill feed. It looks like we lost some teammates. Yeah, it looks like they're all fighting over there. Okay, so we're not here. It seems as though we're not paying attention to what our team's up to because they're all fighting over here and we're not engaging. So again, make sure while the fight is happening that we're helping out because for
Yeah.
example here we can maybe be peeking the corner, taking out the Bastion, right, tap him in his blue box here,
hmm
and then maybe we could high noon from up top on the high ground and get 3 kills with that, right? But instead we're just kind of chilling in place. So again, make sure we're actively participating, and we're not just sitting around. Whereas here we do kill the Junkrat, but it's after we are already down a person, right? And they just got they traded 2 to 1, and this is because we're not putting ourselves in the fight here. And we also missed that.
I didn't even get the junk.
Right, now we do get the passion, which is good. Notice how your entire team isn't here with you because they all just
Yeah.
backed up, right? This fight's like not really looking the best. Now we do get a pick. Oh, maybe aim it a little bit lower the ground there. All right, so now this is working out because we're fragging. Probably don't need to be dropping from high ground. No real benefit from dropping from high ground there at all, right? Just keep it. I've noticed this flashing straight at Reinhardt a lot of the time. Flash up because that's gonna, even if he places a shield, you're gonna get it above his head over the shield.
Yeah.
Whereas it's been blocked multiple times just by throwing at his body, so just make sure we're throwing it up on him. Also, probably that's slightly over aggressive. Make sure we're not running out of Reinhardt unless he's low HP. All right.
I will keep you here.
Oh, hit the shots.
I know, it's falling off.
Yeah, I probably want to. The fight's currently over. Right, this is in the in between fights. Probably just rotating the high ground, taking that. Nothing to keep in mind is that high ground's also pretty fantastic for the enemy team too. So when we're taking high ground, we're also denying it from them, and we can take it away from them.
Yeah.
So that's just another part of why high ground's great. Now we do take it, but it's like because of that delay, the fight's happening while we're in the middle of taking high ground, right? We want to be doing. It's just like that slight delay of like a couple seconds just means that now we're missing out a couple seconds of the fight. Okay.
Yeah, that's bad.
I think only thing
I,
there could have been just awareness, though I don't know. I don't know if we
I
can even hear him
think I
with our
was trying to
audio.
get Bastion, but then he moved and he sat his ass down.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate because we couldn't really see him and then we couldn't hear him. So the only thing I would say to this is check your corners. That's just what that means is just like anytime you walk into a new area, you always look left and you look right. Or I mean, in the situation where it's left side, so you always check what's in the corner before moving, like while you're walking. That way you're not caught off guard by this. Because if we come in here and we check right side real quick, well, now that means that we're able to flash him real quick and then right click and then like maybe roll out of the room, right? And that keeps us alive, right? Same thing, you might want to like if we're coming in here, we might want to like look left real quick. We might want to like check top real quick, and then we come out top. We're gonna check right real quick. We're gonna look left, no one there, right? No one here, right? We just, we want to make sure we're checking those corners. That way, Bastion can't sneak up on us. But besides that, that's a pretty tough one. I'm not gonna, some deaths have a lot more that you can do to fix them than other deaths do, right?
Yeah.
Like some deaths, in fact, don't really have anything else that have much that you can fix at all, right? But 80% of them you will be able to fix something with. Here, this is one of the ones where it's like barely something, but still something. Yeah, okay, we got kind of shredded there. Okay, nice pick.
Yeah, we lost our Ana at the last part of this fight.
Again, just kind of flashing his shield, so maybe flash goes up slightly to like or like his ability usage goes up slightly to like a medium high, or not medium high, low to medium. That's a very big difference. Just because we are missing a lot of our flashes, especially on the Reinhardt, right?
Yeah.
Just want to make sure we're landing those and okay. Okay, probably don't want to keep holding it when we're like 1 HP. Okay, so right here when we use it, it's decent. We just hold on to it way too long again. That's the only thing I maybe say with our ultimate. And again, maybe because of that, we'll bump up ultimate to a low to medium as well. Just like a tiny little bits of here and there. So here we just hold it too long, right?
Now,
So
would you just pull it as soon as you can? Because I saw that diva and I knew that she was probably going to eat it up. So I was hoping I could just wait her out and then get her out of her mech and then
you
kill
want to
her.
prioritize staying alive. Like here, for example, we just are gonna die. We're 20 HP. It'd be better that we just shoot, miss, and then or like here that might even go around it and kill the Junkrat. I think that would probably kill. Oh no, now that she's flown up, now that can't. But we could have possibly killed the Junkrat there. But honestly, it's better that we stay alive and not get a pick, than it is to die and go for one, right? Like 1-for-1 is a terrible deal on DPS, right? It just doesn't work, or even 0-for-1, right? Like you don't want to be having that type of KDA or KD, right? You want to have a much higher one where you're getting multiple kills of life, right? Here
Yeah.
we don't want to be going 1-for-1, and this is just not really prioritizing our life when we're like 20 HP. The immortality could go down. I don't know how long ago it was put up there, and we just want to probably prioritize staying alive. On top of that, I'm pretty certain there I saw a skull on the diva, and we didn't shoot, or we were a little bit delayed with the shoot. like here, right there, lines up, right, and then we just slightly delayed with it. And then I see what you mean now by the Ana. I realized that like halfway, I didn't I thought you
Yeah, I
mentioned
got
she
one
died. Yeah,
fight. Nah, she's gone.
yeah. Is she gonna stay gone? Okay.
Yeah, she stays gone.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Might as well just. Oh, and we still won it. Oh, that's nice. Okay. I mean, that's good. So yeah, we might as well just get to the other one then. Oh, actually, never mind. Let's just go to the practice range. So we're actually going to go over the main points of the session, do a quick review, and then wrap it up from there. So, number one thing to work on was positioning, right? Actually, survivability. I'm trying to think. What was higher, positioning or survivability? I'd probably say positioning because it fed into survivability as well, right? So positioning was number one thing to work on, right? As it just did a whole lot, right? And there's a whole lot of things we need to work on. So, number one, make sure we're using cover properly. Good positioning is the usage of cover. Bad positioning is the absence of cover. We're out in the open quite a bit, and that got us killed a lot. Make sure that we are taking high grounds, not just for high noon, but for to just shoot at people, right? High ground's pretty fantastic positioning, and it acts as an off angle as well. Take off angles to get around tanks and shoot at the things in the back. Make sure that we as well are just focused on staying alive and not being in poor positioning and dying, right? Make sure that we are not going for flanks except for specific times. Make sure we're not rotating in the middle of fights, right? And we want to be rotating in between fights, which sometimes you would be cutting that pretty close, especially that one time where we did that super long wraparound. Make sure we're actively participating. And then those are all the main ones, right? And then number two is going to be survivability. We made a lot of big mistakes that just in our survivability that just really largely impacted our gameplay, right? We just really added up when we were dying first most fights. Like I don't know if there was like one fight that we died within the bottom three of our team, right? It was always first person or second person dead, right? Which can't be that, because if it's that, then that just means that we're constantly putting our team at a disadvantage. So focus on staying alive. The main two ones were positioning and awareness that fed into our deaths, so really look to work on those. But then on top of that, the other two that can sometimes lead into deaths is a over-aggression or misuse of abilities, right? Messing them up, holding on to them, rolling into their team, right? Then moving on from there, number three is going to be our awareness, right? Just a lot of things we just didn't notice, didn't make sure we're listening and keeping our ears open, make sure that we are watching, keeping our eyes open, right? We're paying attention to where's the enemy team at, where are their players at, where's our team at, paying attention to their health bar, right? There's just a lot of things that we just needed to look around for. That would keep us alive and not let us die, and then also just lead to better decisions, right? Now moving on to number four. These bottom two are pretty close. Probably say ultimate usage, just because the ultimate usage is just slightly more important than the ability usage, because McCree's abilities aren't super powerful. So ultimate usage comes first, though your ults are pretty solid. Wanting to make sure we're not holding on for them for too long. Prioritize your life while you're in them. Make sure we're not rotating in the middle of fights, right? But in between fights, and those are the main ones, right? So then finally is the last one, which is just the ability usage. Wanting to make sure that we're just not flashing shield over and over again, but we're aiming up to hit those. And then finally, and that's pretty much it. So, wait, did I skip? I skipped mechanics. My bad. Mechanics goes ahead of those two. I've actually skipped that one. So it goes. So we go positioning, survivability, awareness, mechanics, then ultimate usage, then ability usage, right? So mechanics comes in at number 4. Wanting to make sure that we're keeping crosshair placement, as well as making sure that we are shooting at the right things, not tanks all the time, but supports and DPS, right? And then now, on to that thing I was going to talk about, is just how to work on this stuff, right? Making sure, and how does one work on all the stuff that we've been talking about? Vague things such as awareness, right? How does one work on awareness, or how does one work on just staying alive? Because that sounds pretty vague. Well, someone
Yeah.
looks to work on that stuff the same way that you're working on anything that you're trying to fix, and that is to focus on it while you're playing, right? You're not going to autopilot while you play. You're not going to just play to play, and contrary to popular belief, you're not going to play to win, right? Playing to win is going to lead to stagnation. You're just going to stay the exact same that you were, years ago or whatever, right? It's just going to lead to stagnation. So instead, when you play, you want to play to improve.
No payment
So
required.
what your brain should look
Business
like
on
while
that.
you're playing is it would look something like this, where you're going awareness, right? Or positioning, that one I can't say. Positioning, right? When we're giving ourselves constant reminders and we're paying attention specifically to the thing we're trying to work on, you're going to notice that it's starting to do a little bit better, right? We're actually, thinking about where we're standing, and we're thinking about, what are the things around us. And then when we do that for a long enough period of time, it's going to start to form as a habit, right? And now we don't need to think about it as much. It's just going to come naturally, right? Now, we've talked about a lot of different things here. Don't try to do every single thing at once, right? Instead, focus on one category of things, or 1 to 3 smaller things, right? And then move on once you've started to master it, right? Or gotten a lot better at the very least. So do you have any
Never
questions on
much
anything that we've
like
talked about?
you.
So when you're playing McCree, do you normally are playing high ground rather than just like playing behind tanks?
Yeah, so it definitely depends on the situation. High ground's not always going to be on the map. It's not always going to be very good. Like I said, if it's super far away, it might not even be very good, right? Like if it's all the way over here against these guys, unless we have a high noon, what are we gonna be able to do from this distance? But when there's a high ground above the fight and it is there, probably want to take it, right? The only time I would maybe sit with the team is if they were like on a full dive and they have a ton of stuff that can contest us. But then even then, sometimes I might even take the high ground, right? It really depends on the situation. Whenever it's an option, though, it is going to be really good positioning, right? And that answers your question. You got any more?
So if anyone comes to dive you, you're just saving your stun for that.
You can save your stun for that. Yeah, like you kind of change up your play style, to where you're saving your stun specifically for a dive. But if they are on a dive, but then on top of that, you can, just roll. They dive you. You can roll down to your team. You can roll backwards and duel them, right? You can, flash them as they come in, right? You have a bunch of different options that you can take. You just want to make sure you're not being like super overly aggressive on the high ground, right? Because there are ways to do that. Like if we're standing right here, if we're not going, let's say we're not going for high noon, we can't shoot at 5 people at once, but 5 people at once can shoot at us. So instead, we might want to back up a little bit, add in a crouch. That way, less people can see us, and we have less people who can damage us. So just that type of deal. Make sure we're not getting too overly aggressive. Okay. Anything else?
That's really all I can think of.
All right. So let me stop the